Now I'm going to move to amend the agenda, removing the executive session at the end. Need a second for that motion. Judy seconds that. Any discussion about that or why? Okay, all in favor of amending the agenda? So 5-0, and then all in favor of the approving the amended agenda? There, I think I got that right. Yes?
The amended agenda is
a separate motion.
Is ending the executive session.
Ending the executive session.
Oh, great.
Right.
I agree.
So you approve of the other agenda too, as amended? Okay, 5-0. Okay, we also need an appointment of an acting clerk. I move that Maureen be our acting clerk. She's behaving like it already. Talked to her beforehand. Thank you, Maureen. Second by Kevin.
10 seconds.
Any?
Maureen wins.
Yep, all in favor? Thank you, Maureen. Ariel already had other plans tonight. Okay, communication. Not student advisor tonight, right? So for communication, the president's side, we had recently a legislative breakfast with either our local representatives in Albany or people from their offices that they sent, as well as Joe Morelli. It happens annually. We're always grateful for the opportunity. We take generally 2 trips to Albany as well, one in November, is it? November to Albany, and then in March, December. December's was canceled this year, right? So our next one coming up is in March, but always trying to advocate for school districts and funding. Joyce and I were at the Joe Morelli table, who's not a state representative anymore. I mean, he's a representative to the House at the federal level, so it was interesting to have him there. But it was a good discussion. I enjoyed the discussion with him. He showed good understanding of what the challenges that children would face in being educated if they're suffering from trauma in many other areas. The expenses associated with English language learners in terms of broken policies and immigration and everything that's correlated with it, and the job we want to do to educate them appropriately, those who come here learning English as not a second language, what do we call it, as a new language, right? And appreciated just the conversation and recognition that he had, but I'd like to open it up to those who were there, Maureen and Joyce, right, to this state, and then we've invited Ms. Susan Casement as well to talk about the FEA's experience that they had a week later. So, well, you can wait. I'll ask Joyce and Maureen to say a few words first, if you want to. That is, I won't force you.
Go, Joyce.
Well, I was at the same table as you, and I was impressed with Joe's statements and his involvement, and he seemed to be on the same page we are, thinking in terms of children with trauma and difficulties and new languages and all of that, and the expense around all of that, and our needs. Do think we should take advantage of his ask to be invited, and he said he would like to sit down with us and hear what we have to say, what our needs are, what we expect from him, that sort of thing. So I really think we should take advantage of that if we can make arrangements. I know he's going to be busy, but he asked, so I say grab him. So yeah, I was impressed with what he had to say. As you say, it was different because he's federal and not state, but the person from the governor's office was a no-show, which is who I was supposed to be seated with, and so I moved over to Joe's table where there was room.
And I would agree. I don't know what the process is to go about getting a date, but I would say we extend an invitation.
Yeah, I think to contact his local office and they'll make arrangements. They probably want something written on our letterhead, you know, have to come from your office.
I'm sorry. So.
You sat at a different table than us, right?
I sat at a different table than you. I don't care. Go to message. Brett and I were with Senator Funke's aide because Senator Funke wasn't able to be here. So we talked about federal issues. She is in total agreement with everything we want. She's the aide. We have a problem in upstate New York in that we are represented by minority people. the majority of the legislators, both in the Assembly and in the Senate, are the opposite party, and the majority of them are from the city or from the east side of the Hudson River. And there's a very different piece, the way they see education, than the way we see education. They want to give to their constituents who are primarily living in cities or larger communities. We are primarily not in that area. So I'm just saying there's a disconnect, and I'll add to that, we asked them directly, what can they do to make sure that we upstaters get heard, get seen, get what we need, because there's a whole bunch of activities where you really have to cross the aisle, and it's not easy to do in this day and age. And at the very end, because I'm also on the BOCES board, something came up about BOCES, and we thanked Senator Funke because he's been very supportive. He's been able to get things for us, and I know, Brett, you talked about that. But the Senate and the Assembly both this year passed a couple of important issues that are involving BOCES. One, the district superintendent cap, and two, the idea that if BOCES needs to have bond votes, needs to improve their capital, that money is coming from us local taxpayers, and we are under a 2% cap. What we've been asking for quite a while is for the money that BOCES needs to be removed from our cap, because yes, it impacts our students, but it impacts our taxing ability as well to do what we need to do for the people who are in our buildings. And so it's an interesting piece there. The Senate has voted for it, the Assembly has voted for it, the governor has vetoed it. The governor is very intent on making sure that we don't ever go over any sort of tax cap. And the last comment that we heard, which was from Assemblyman Mark Johns, is that obviously we know that the tax cap information is tied to rent control. I don't know how philosophically they do that, but it's what the senators and the Assembly members who are in the majority need to represent their constituents. And that's what they're looking for. They're not as concerned, but they're concerned about rent control, not owner control. And I'm just saying, they're not, what's happening to the people that have to do these things. So there were some side conversations. As I said, I think you'll find that Senator Funke, Mr. Johns are supportive of education, but they're not in position to be leaders in that area or to make it go forward. And Mr. Provenzano, is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
I think you captured it. When I do my report, I'm given the opportunity to share my experiences, but I think Susan Casement, who's FEA leader in the district, had an opportunity to meet with legislators this past weekend, and the board is interested in hearing how that went. Do you want to
Come on over here, please. Oh, sorry.
give you a microphone?
Good evening, board. Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate that. I thought you had asked what we discussed at our meeting. We met on Saturday. I did send to you some materials. The attached material that is from the executive budget highlights that NYSET is asking for, those were all stated at our forum to the legislators. So everything that's in that printed sheet, they did here. Then we had a series of questions and answers. Not every topic that we wanted made it there, but big topics were tax cap, the 60% vote, which they all said they were against. Oh, and I should back up. They were all there. Funke was there, Robach was there, not Morelli, but Jamie Romero was there, Bronson was there. So they were, and Mark Johns was there, Peter Lawrence. So they were all in attendance, so that was good, as well as some of their staff members. So they all said they're against the 60%. They wanted to go back down for the vote to go over. and they did talk a lot about funding because that was some of our major questions. They all indicated that we're going to get more funding. Now, of course, they say that, but we're going to try to hold them to those words, but they said it's going to be worked out differently than what we see now. They say that every year, but we'll see if they follow through on that. And they expect most of that to be increased. We talked about taxes. It's so funny. They love their school districts. And it's funny when you see how some people that are up there on that dais never really cared that much until now it's their school districts and they're in those schools and they see what's going on. So they're very keyed into their own school districts, which was nice to see. And the problem was that we only had so much time, and then they all have to answer to every question. So when question and answer was over, they all jetted, except for Mark Johnson. He came to our table. So I did get to speak to him directly about children of trauma and ENLT, and we plan on following up and told him we would have a local visit to him. We also hope to send somebody this year to our committee of 100 so that we can have somebody in Albany also. And then we plan to follow up with Mr. Funky. We did speak to his aide. And this year, 2 retirees were sponsored by the Retiree Council, well known to you, Patty Mason and Marilyn Monkelbon. So Marilyn in particular is well-versed and was really talking to people about our different programs and what we're doing. And then I also gave you what I gave our own people that went and what we considered our talking points, children of poverty, what we can do with extending some of the aid that we get for children of poverty, as well as the children of trauma, and the ENL was our major focus, as well as the tax cap, and what we can do to get them to put in some more exclusions for the tax cap, and what can they remove from your equation that we could look at. So those seem to be, similar to what you're hearing is our focus too. I think we're really together on this more than perhaps in other times, but right now I think we're a coalition together asking for the same things. So, and I know our people in Albany are doing a good job on that. Anything else I could? Thanks for the invitation, though. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for your willingness.
It's nice, Sue, to see that people think that sometimes we're on the opposite sides, and when it comes to the kids, we're on the same sides. When it comes to schools, we see the same needs. So thank you for doing what you do, because, it's good to get that commonality.
But seeing you talk,
Uh-oh.
what makes me think of that is the president of BOCES, Teachers Association, they have another meeting with these same legislators because they bring together all the BOCES. And so he asked for all my documentation, some of which I've sent to you, what I said to you at the board budget meeting, so on. And he plans to go at him again for the mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're trying to help each other in this area.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Casement. I agree. I think the alignment of our stories is powerful, and it's great to see us collaborate and have the same talking points and the same message. I am too grateful for the board's commitment and their passion to give our students in schools the very best for our community. They deserve the best, and I'm always in awe of their passion and their insights to make the very best for our students, but also for public education. Nobody puts in more time than the Fairport Board from my perspective, and I'm greatly appreciative of their efforts, and I know our students and staff are as well. I'm going to continue to talk about school funding from, the funding aspect, excuse me. I mean, we've talked about the tax cap. We've talked about, the great needs that are occurring throughout all of our schools. We've talked about the possibility of putting exclusions in the tax cap formula to help us pay for the great programs that we have here that serve our students and serve our community. If you take a look, New York State would categorize Fairport as a higher wealth, lower need school district. And that's important to recognize because you see how the pie is divided up when it comes to funding. We get a majority of our revenue from our local levy. Our ability to provide funding or provide programming depends on our ability to raise the revenues. We get approximately $73 million from our local levy. And right now, that tax cap restricts our ability, and it restricts our community's ability, and it restricts our community's voice in being able to determine what's best for our community. If you take a look at the tax cap, it's not democratic. It takes away the ability for the people who live in the community to make decisions that's best for their community. And when we have a majority of our programming that is funded through the local levy, we rely on the foundation aid. And as you'll see in a little bit, we'll be talking about foundation aid and how that's pretty much remaining flat as you know, the costs of living continue to increase, costs of programming continue to increase, the needs that we are so honored to serve, the needs are greater. We know more now more than ever. I was at Johanna Perrin in Martha Brown's faculty meeting this afternoon, and there was a statistic that was shown that 1 out of 4 of our students sitting in a classroom could be facing poverty. We have 176 total English language learners in our district. That has significantly increased. We are proud and honored to serve all of these children. But at the end of the day, it needs to be funded appropriately. As we go through the budget process, you'll see that this foundation aid has not been fully funded since its enactment in 2007 and 2008 in the name of $82 million for Fairport. That's $82 million of unrealized aid that we are supposed to be getting as a result of the foundation aid formula that has not been fully funded. Major implications for Fairport students, Fairport families, and our community at large. So this right here speaks great to me, because when we're advocating, it's important that we recognize that in order for us to continue to serve the needs of our students, all of our students, when we say we strive to meet students where they are, that requires robust programming, and it requires resources. And when the state's not doing their part, it makes it challenging and puts a greater burden on our schools, which we've experienced over the past several years. And also, before we get to this piece, it's important, when you're looking at a tax cap, it's so much more unpredictable because it's based upon the CPI or inflation. And when we're trying to do future planning, that adds another complications to our forecasting. But the budget tells a story, and amid all of these challenges that we face in public education, our budget tells a story, and it speaks about where we put our resources and what we deem as important. I came across, I had the great gift this morning to attend a diversity march at Jefferson Ave School, and to me this speaks to our purpose. This speaks to our Board of Education's priorities. At the end of the day, we need to make the world a better place. All of our programming, all of our resources, every budget line should be focused toward this concept. And I have to stop about a minute and a half. I can go on and on with it, but I think you'll get the point as we move along. Zach? That's, well, did I lose it? Yeah, that's it. That's all we got. But if you take a look at creating environments that allow students to express their voice, to celebrate diversity, to engage with each other, we talk about this concept of 21st century learning. It's making the world a better place, providing environments that allow our students the opportunity to participate in meaningful activities like this. And this was one of the highlights of my day. This was another very important conversations that I had today with a group of administrators at one of our cabinet meetings today. We took a look at this article from Nicholas Daya. He's an FHS student who recently wrote "The Phone Epidemic. Are You Infected?" Right? And this is the impact of mobile devices on our lives. As a district, this is something that I feel is an incredible priority. I know our board's looking into social media and its impacts, and we had a very, it's a beginning conversation. I know our wellness committee is also looking at how social media needs to be used in school as a tool, as a resource, but also with guidelines and guardrails as we move up through the learning in all of our schools. We can say for certain this affects our buildings. This affects a K-5 building, it affects a 6-8 building and a 9-12 building, maybe in different ways, but the implications are significant, and we're looking forward to having more conversations about this very topic in the very near future, understanding, the science behind it, in as much as it's been studied to date. But today was an important day as we started to talk about this collectively, and we're going to continue to talk about it. We're going to engage the community and try to make meaning for our students so they can manage technology. This was in the Lampion, I think the most recent Lampion, so be on the lookout for it, the zombie apocalypse. Here's another picture that I came across this afternoon when I was at Martha Brown at 3:30 after the school day. There was a group of students getting ready for their competition in Cleveland. This is the robotics team. There's 43 students on the robotics team. They're making their way to Cleveland, I believe, next week. They're putting in extra time, looking at their apparatus here and the technology that's associated with it and the science and the math. It's a multidisciplinary endeavor. Our students are engaged. They're passionate about it. We have 3 advisors that support it throughout our district. The Board of Education supports it. The budget supports it. Again, the budget tells a story, and we give students an opportunity to express their passion for robotics. And robotics just isn't about the robots. It's a multidisciplinary activity where they're marketing, where they're problem solving, where there's different tasks given to different groups. And our students do very well in robotics, and we're proud of that. And I saw that today, and I just thought I'd share as we talk about budget and making sure that our budget tells our story here in Fairport. This tells a story too. This is the month of March. It's our version as we go off to February break. We'll be closing in on March. It's our version of March Madness. You'll see that there's going to be opportunities, and again, opportunities for our students to express themselves beyond the classroom. There's going to be the performing and visual arts throughout the month of January. There's going to be Brotherhood, Sisterhood Week. Again, a board priority, making sure that we always treat each other with civility, awareness, respect, and always embracing differences of each other. I'm very excited about March. It's an important point in the year as we look at spring, but we got to get through March first, and Brotherhood, Sisterhood Week certainly allows us to do that. I'm going to end with one last slide. It speaks volumes. Again, this is at Northside. It's the Super Bowl. It's about contribution given to greater causes and building lifelong memories. These students will remember that, and I will end on that note. Thank you all very much, and have a great break. Zach.
Hi, I'm Ellen. Mrs. McDermott's class runs the Super Bowl for our school, Northside, and we raised 1,803 canned goods and different food items. our goal was 2,000, but we didn't really get there, but we were super close.
Northside made such a difference in our community. We raised 1,803 cans and goods. Northside did such a great job. Thank you, Northside, for donating. All of the donations go to the Parented Food Shelf.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brett. So Matt, our treasurer's report.
Okay. Thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the treasurer's report for the month of December 2018. The beginning general fund cash balance of $73.6 million with receipts of the month of $2.6 million and disbursements at $9.2 million for an ending cash balance in the general fund of $67 million. Of the $67 million, approximately $59 million is invested in a combination of primarily T-bills, but also CD and insured cash sweep account, which is about 88% of the general fund cash balance. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, approval of the consent calendar. Need a motion to approve. Judy, second. Kevin? All in favor? 5-0. Personnel actions, it starts there on the bottom of page 2. It takes us through the bottom of page 3. This is all the instructional staff actions. Motion to approve. Joyce, second. Maureen, any questions or? No, we don't have our HR guy here anyway, so. Okay, all in favor? 5-0. Athletics, there, starting on page, this is a long one, right, starting bottom of page 3, going through most of page 5. So we're seeing a lot of coaches coming up for this time of year. Motion to approve. Judy, second. Kevin, questions? All in favor? 5-0. And retirement, starting on the bottom of page 5. Not always a list I like to see, but anyway, going on to the top of page 6. A lot of incredible names on here, like all of them, but.
Yeah. A lot of hours.
Yeah. So anyway, I almost want to have a moment of silence. But. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Maureen, Joyce seconds. Did you want to say something?
Yes, we have a newly acting Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, and the wording of this is different from the way it was in the past. And I just would like to commend, normally we just say, recommend the approval for the retirements. But I always feel like that's so little. This has got a little additional piece that's with appreciation for their contributions to the Fairport Central School District. These people, I mean, we got thanked, oh my gosh, we put in hours. These people have put in years. I don't know, I'm sure somebody at the end of the retirement system, at the end of the year when we get everyone together, they're going to count up all the years and it's going to be 1,000. It's just my guess, you know. But there are just so many different people that we have that have been parts of our lives for such a long time. Thank you very much for all of the services that they had. And for the person who's in the room, thank you very much.
Well stated, Maureen, thank you.
Probably not thousands, but close.
Well, now it begs the question, how many hours of experience or years of experience are we losing here, right? And obviously opens the door for new, but we are very grateful. Thank you for all those good years. So all in favor? 5-0. I'm sure it would have been 7-0. D, non-instructional civil service staff actions from page 6, 7, and to the top of page 8. We have
Oops, I'm on the right page.
Right. Well, you see all the different varieties there. Okay, motion to approve. Kevin and Joyce. And any questions or comments for this one? All in favor? 5-0.
In the same comment, the recognize the people who've retired for their service, so thank you for all the people that have retired and given great service. Okay,
Okay, caught up.
I'm caught up.
Presentations, so our monthly update on the capital projects. Is that right to Mark? Okay. Been a while, Mark.
Welcome back, Mark. You're going to share the transportation facility capital project. You're going to give an update and the story that it's telling as we are moving through this process. Thank
Yes,
you.
it's actually going very well, going through this. So just our February update. We have our overall budget for this referendum that was passed in 2016 of $11.2 million. We have it broken up into 3 different categories of the incidental budget of $1.8 million, the construction contingency that's over $400,000, and then all of our contracts associated with this project that's just under $9 million. We have completed all the work at Northside and Dudley Elementary Schools that was bid with this, so currently we are just tracking now the 2016 referendum. So to give an update on our construction contingency status, out of the $403,100, we have spent $159,779, leaving us just under $250,000. We have completed 67% of the project per the pay applications, and with that percentage complete, we've actually spent 40% of our construction contingency. Again, what we try to do is track these. They want to make sure these numbers coincide throughout the entire project. We do have $140,000 of pending items that we're tracking. These are things that need to take place or have taken place, and we're working out the paperwork on that process. But then we also have the allowances that are built into our construction contracts. That value that's just under $9 million. We still have $33,954 remaining in those that can be spent on some miscellaneous things that come across in the project, similar to how we spend the construction contingency. So that $33,954 is actually on top of that $243 of dollars that are unallocated at this point. So just a project status. I got a lot of photos here because we are starting to get into finishes of the space interior and on the exterior of the building. Just as of today, all of the exterior windows have been installed throughout that, so when you drive by, you can see up in the dormer we have the windows that are installed there. Decorative sills are being installed throughout the spaces. We have all of the exterior. We are weather tight within this facility. We have temporary heating the space, so our finishes that are going in are in a conditioned space. And then as the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing fixtures are being installed, they have not all been turned on yet, but that's something that we'll be working over in the next 6 weeks for that process to beginning those to be turned on. The bottom bullet on this slide is our stair towers. Currently, stair tower number 2 in the northeast corner of the facility is about to be fully operational with concrete being poured into the steel stairs, and then we'll start working on those stair number 1 on the other side of the facility. Those are big milestones to be able to get up and down throughout the facility as people continue doing the work. So some photos of this. We have completed the bulk storage area that's on the maintenance bay floor. A look at the painting that's going on in the facility right now. We have painted the high bays, and we have wall paint going on throughout the bay areas for the buses. We did pour the floor over the last month to finish this off. The wash bay has been painted. The equipment is being delivered and being ready to be installed. Again, another look at the bay. As you can see, we have the reels that are being installed throughout this, so we're really starting to get into some of the fit and finish of the space. Garage doors have all been installed over the past few weeks. A look at the transportation area. You see we get drywall. We have all the finishing of the drywall done. We need to finish off insulating above the ceiling. We'll put in the ceiling and begin painting that process. So again, when we start getting into the finishes of spaces, it really starts coming together very quickly. A look at it from the transportation office upstairs. This is looking out. They have a view of the back parking lot for overseeing the parking area to make sure they had a safety aspect that went into the design. A look at one half of the driver's room that's going in there. There's an operable partition that has a steel structure that's been installed for this. And again, just finishing off with the insulating of the ductwork above the ceiling. We'll have the ceiling installed then and finish off the painting. And a look at that. Same thing, this is the other side of the driver's room. The elevator lobby space upstairs, that when you come up off the elevator in the stair area, entering into the driver's room space and all of the transportation offices. You have an office break room. There'll be a vanity sink with some cabinetry on there for storage in this space and the upstairs. And again, another look at another office up at the second floor of transportation overlooking the bus parking lot again. We have restrooms that are being tiled currently, so finishes are going on throughout these. It's the same tile that was matched up at the high school throughout that in that last project, so trying to keep some of those same themes from building to building. And then these dormer windows have been installed and were completed today on the facility. So we have a couple looks of different angles of the transportation center from the outside of the building. It's really coming together throughout the space with all the trades working in there right now. And just a look at that. So really that is the remaining site work around the facility that has to happen when the other building comes down. We'll finish off that, and then the final top asphalt will happen this summer. Any questions?
Could you go back to the first page? I know you're going to love that. But I had a question on, right at the beginning, I said,
Yep.
I got to remember this. So, no, okay, the difference between construction contingency budget and the facility construction contracts, what does that mean to you? What do those two numbers mean to you?
All right, so inside, so our construction
Or
contingency.
I'm sorry, the incidental budget and the contingency budget, those sound, contingency sounds like incidental to me.
Okay.
What does it mean to you?
So the incidental budget contains really the soft costs for the project. When we first set it up back in 2016, we based it on percentages, but including in that budget is architect fees, construction manager fees. We have all of the testing that goes on the site for third-party testing agencies for testing of the soils, testing for geotechnical compaction, so we make sure we can build on it. The steel inspections are built into that. There is a line item for furniture for the building within that. So there's different things that aren't aided, that the way the state looks for aiding of it, it's not related to construction, so they're called soft costs on that side, so they're considered the incidental costs.
Okay.
And then the construction contingency, I believe we set aside, I want to say it was between 5 and 6% of the construction value, and that's how we created a value for the construction contingency when we started the project up. And that's because of when we get through the project and we have unforeseen items to address those.
Okay, thank you. No.
I'm
No.
only allowed to take questions from the board, sir, sorry. Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Get to the end of it.
That is really getting impressive to see.
It's
All-
really
all the
coming
parts
up very
together.
nicely. We're on a very good pace, and it's working out very nice. Thank you very much.
And
Have a
on
good night.
schedule, I assume,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
we are on schedule still for having this up and operational in May and everybody moving into it, so,
Okay,
Wow.
open house.
yes. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you. So to the 2019-2020 instructional budget, we were sent a newer version earlier today, right? I don't. One slide was changed. Right, okay. Very good. It was kind of our intent to have Maureen, Kevin, and I, chime in from time to time, if you will, in terms of what the Audit and Finance Committee has talked about in all this. That's happens to be more than, 3 of the 5 of us, right? I said 3 of the 7 of us, but anyway, don't hesitate to ask questions, or chime in, Kevin and Maureen, as well.
Thank you.
Well, this does mark the beginning of our budget season, and I got to get my budget legs back under me. So as I go through this first presentation, I'll look forward to breaking them in with you. I'm going to start out, and then Mr. Stevens is going to come in and take us to the home stretch. But I do appreciate the work that's gone into it to date. I think Mr. Forsgren talked about the Audit and Finance Committee digging into it. I know that throughout the year that we've established specific goals that we'll be able to see come to fruition here tonight. I'm going to share a little bit about the funding again. I shared earlier about funding and advocacy efforts, history of some state aid in Fairport and how it's translated in dollars, trends of our budget and tax levy increases throughout the years, and review components of the non-instructional budget line item by line item, and of course the board will have an opportunity to have discussion. This year, the board goals specifically wanted to make sure that we outline very specific expectations for the budget and the budget process. As I said earlier, the budget tells a story. We should be able to take a look at what happens in our schools daily and see it reflected in our budget, and these goals are a reflection of that. These goals are a reflection of a year-long process that we've engaged with constituency groups, that the board's had conversations with teachers, with staff, and we tried to create goals that align to what we've been hearing for the past year. Aligning or allocating our financial and human resources to support instructionally and developmentally appropriate class sizes, mental health and other unique learning needs. More than ever, this is a topic of conversation, not just in Fairport, but throughout the county, state, and nation. Always looking at ways to engage our students. We know that if we can engage our students, they could be healthy, safe, and strong. We know that we can create meaningful connections for them in school to prepare them for the grade level that they're at and beyond school. Curriculum management is a priority with our educational programming expectations, and maintaining our aging facilities to support 21st century learning. Again, last year we had a district advisory council with over 107 members who served, community members who served on that committee. We had over 3,000 people participate in surveys and opportunities to interact with the Board of Education as we set our expectations for the future. So what we're sharing is also a reflection of what we learned. We're proud of the fact of allocating up to 1% of our annual budget on identified needs via our building condition survey. So for the first time that I've been here, you're going to start seeing and hearing us talk about things that we're going to be putting in the budget that need to be maintained and supported to make sure that our students have and our staff have safe and operational and functioning facilities to learn. Continue to identify and employ cost containment measures to manage our expenditures. We'll be talking about that through the budget process, and to review the use of reserves and establish prudent floors for reserves to support district sustainability. As I shared with you during my report, I didn't touch base on the reserves, but reserves are a necessity. It's a way that we can help add some levels of predictability into our budget process, but also continue to support our incredible programs that we have here in Fairport. Our New York State aid package, $956 million, the governor's executive budget shared. The overall education proposed for increase for the 1920 school year. The highlights include 1.9% increase in foundation aid. Now, foundation aid, again, is our largest source of funding. Approximately $164,000 or 0.7% increase was given to Fairport. Think about that. On a $129 million budget, we were given a $164,000 increase to manage the rising costs, the programming that's needed to support students with special needs, students who come from financial stress, and English language learners who come from various backgrounds who we're honored and proud to serve all these wonderful people in our schools, but it does take resources. We're receiving approximately $307,000 in our expense-based aids, and that's for transportation, BOCES, and buildings to maintain our facilities and so on and so forth. A major part was that tax cap that the governor's trying to legislate and make it commonplace for years to come. Again, that stresses not only Fairport, but all schools throughout the state.
And that's one of the legislative, I think, consistent messages. They were fairly confident that's probably going to happen through some degree of negotiation, trading off other things, but they.
It sells,
Yeah.
it sells, and, and legislators feel good to say that, hey, we're controlling taxes. Okay, if that's going to happen, we need to talk about exclusions. And Ms. Casement was talking about exclusions, and there's many ways that we can look at exclusions to provide support for those students who are at risk, provide, for some of the mandates that are required of us, we should get some relief for that. So we're looking to work with them in that realm.
Yeah.
Fairport State aid revenue since 2013, 2014. You could see in 2014, 2015, you're going to see GEA having an impact, slowly coming back into our budget after we lost $32 million worth of our gap elimination adjustment that was taken from us. Severely impacted schools. In addition to the foundation aid that hasn't been fully funded, we had to endure the gap elimination years. We were made whole with GEA, but you can sort of see how we've leveled off over the past couple of years. Foundation aid, again, there's another way to look at it. Our costs are rising faster than our ability to provide funding for our programming and our facilities and everything that goes along with running a school district. Here's a graph for us visual learners that gives you another way to look at, we were making some headway back with in 2013 through 2017 with getting our GEA restored back, but that was short-lived, and we're flattening out, and our ability to raise revenue is certainly limited. School budget history. We can expect that throughout the years, our budgets will tell this story. But if you look at 2018-19, where there's a 1.5% increase from a year-to-year budget, that's because there was a lot of work done last year. And there was $1 million less in reserves that we used to balance our budget. And we're not expecting a year like we've had in the past 2 years. I think that's important to recognize. I think we're at a place where we have some more predictability. Sustainability is right in front of us, and that's because we had to do some hard work over the past couple of years, but we're seeing our way through that, and hopefully we'll continue to tell that story. You'll see our tax levy and our tax rate. The tax rate is down 0.47%. That's because the town reassessed our homes this past year, and that's why there's a significant decrease relative to our actual tax levy too. There it is, visually represented. The non-instructional budget portion is incredibly important for the success of our district. Snow removal is a real thing, right? And it takes people, it takes resources to make sure that we're doing all we can to make sure we're maintaining our facilities in a $129 million organization. Preventative maintenance, making sure that we're doing all we can to provide the best resources for safe and inviting learning environments for our students and our community at large. The non-instructional budget speaks to facilities, capital expenditures for the equipment that we use and the replacement that's necessary to continue with the maintenance. Transportation of busing for approximately 5,700 students. Central administration and support services, technology services, and employee benefits. That's the portion of this evening's budget. The components of the non-instructional budget include the general support, transportation, employee benefits, debt service, and other interfund transfers, and community service. Those last three bullets, Mr. Stevens will be on board to talk a little bit about them. Services that support and enhance the core academic program. This is the general support portion of our budget. This is the Board of Education. You'll see a 0.05% increase. The district clerk, last year, the district clerk position was reduced. Further taking a look at that, you'll see a negative 12% decrease in that line. And in order to put forth a vote, the costs on that are remaining the same, the district vote for our budget. For the finance department, this is our business department. There was another negative 1.24% change. There was change in office staffing that reduced an item line there, so that's why you see a reduction in that area. Auditing, treasurer, tax collection, purchasing agent, there are increases that are aligned to those lines, natural increases. The town and county, we're collecting their tax bills, and that's why you see a 8.3% increase there. All the little nuances to run a school district need to be accounted for. The tax collection. The fiscal agent fees, yeah.
Continuing disclosure for all of our debt. We have to do a continuing disclosure every year.
Related to staff, central administration is the superintendent's office. It relates to the other contractual materials and supplies, all that it takes to support the superintendent's office. There's a 2.3% increase. Legal fees remain flat. Human resources is in this line. There'll be a 0.71% increase in that line. And again, that's materials, supplies, other contractual pieces for the functioning of that office. And public information with a 3.3% increase. Central services, the cleaning and maintenance of district facilities, health and safety related to the building repairs, district-wide buildings and grounds repair needs. This is a line item that was directly a part of our district advisory council. This is part of a strategic initiative that speaks to the importance of putting forth a budget that directly makes sure that we're taking care of our facilities, that we have cost containment measures embedded into our budget, and you'll see that this budget reflects, you'll see that budget line of the maintenance piece of a 36% increase just in that line, for a total of 17% in that central services line. The operational plant, again, just a 5.5% increase, but you'll see that specifically how that plays out and why that maintenance is at that number to support the operations of our facilities, to make sure that right up front we're putting, these are the things that we're going to be looking to improve and invest in, using our budget to support that, instead of using under the end of the year fund balances to take care of all of our maintenance needs. Central services, or other central services. This is our central data processing technology services, 3.4% increase. This is our instructional technology department, our non-collectives, which we have close to, I believe, 75 non-collective unit members in our organization. and our work with BOCES and BOCES networking. Special items, you'll see flat lines all the way across, both, except for our administrative BOCES cost. BOCES is central to much of what we do. We have many partnerships, and we take advantage of many of the BOCES services. There's an associated fee to participate in BOCES, and it's a 3% from 2018 to 2019. So in total, the general support with the Board of Education, Central Administration, Finance, Staff, Central Services, and Special Items, there's a 10.26% increase for the general support portion of the budget. Transportation. Variables that impact our transportation are fuel and oil prices. Homeless transportation, we have close to 30 members in our community who are deemed homeless. We have a responsibility to support them with transportation needs. We have private and parochial commitments that we're required to participate in. Tutoring services and special education needs are growing greater, and we see this with how we're transporting students with special needs. There's shuttles, there's out-of-district placements to support our special education students.
I know you probably don't have the specifics here, but I see buses in different places that seem to have very few kids on them, but they're full-size buses. What is our plan, or how do we work with some of these variables that need one or two people to take them to this school, or the homeless children to take them from grandma's or wherever they're living to, because they are getting a Fairport education, and that's the law. But we don't really need a full busload. What are we doing to make sure that we're being conscious of those kinds of things, not sending a large bus out when, yeah. Or the other question I have is, I've heard from districts that are piggybacking when they have to go to another school. They will come along and pick up students from other districts that are on the way. Are we doing any of those things to save money?
We coordinate and we try to partner with other school districts to try to align services. So who could be a shuttle, who could be a tag, combined, and but a lot of times there's unique needs and services that are associated with that. If there's handicap situations, that is a larger bus just by the very nature of it. I do know that Dr. Lawrence is very conscious of transporting buses. We do a lot of contracting these days because we don't have the resources internally. So you might see a bus in our district with one or two kids that we've had to contract out as well. But those are, when you talk about running in a transportation center, those are pieces that I believe, and I can have Peter Lawrence talk at greater length of that at some point in time. But I know that those are running it efficiently and effectively on the top of his list.
Okay, thank you.
Maureen, relative to that, when we were at the State School Board Association, right, one of the advocacy things that was adopted was to try and allow that to be more efficient, as you recall, because there are some restrictions, right? As a bus goes through from another school district into ours, you think, well, maybe they can go ahead and pick up some of our students along the way since they're coming to our school. And that's not allowed entirely, and I'm not aware of all the restrictions that apply, but that's one of the things we approved as an advocacy by the state school board is to have that change in law so we can all become more efficient that way.
Yeah, and I could even add, excuse me, as a county, for business officials, we've looked at trying to combine those services because we're all doing, every district is really transporting those onesies, twosies throughout.
Private schools or wherever. Yeah.
Right, so, with where Fairport's located, there aren't many that necessarily may be passing by to go to the BOCES or some of the other locations where we're traveling, within. So sometimes, we try to coordinate those pieces with each of the districts out here. We do, when it comes to some of the homeless transportation, we see the Apple contract that we, approve each year. So those are kind of the one, the single transportation pieces we have going on and balancing those pieces as well, so.
Thank you.
You see it in the slide, and Matt was speaking about the Apple transportation. and Monroe School Transportation, we're needing to contract more and more because there is a significant shortage. And in this line item of $435,000 for 1920 school year, dollars we're taking out of the district transportation and put into the contracts. Again, the needs are greater. We need to farm these runs out, so that's why you'll see a significant increase in that line item there.
Thank you. 278% is a significant increase.
And you'll see, garage building, contract plow service. We've added significant amount of pavement, if you will, parking lots with Dudley Northside. Those are two full, fully functioning, very effective, working great. But when they need to be plowed, they take significant people hours. We have not added staff, but we are going to try to, we'll be contracting plowing service for the bus garage and receive the benefits of aid on that as well.
Good.
Bus purchases. We are in replacement cycle. Bless you. You'll see that there's a minus 2.6% increase, or a minus 2.6% in that line item. We're going to be looking to replace 12 buses, 7 71 passenger buses, 4 28 passenger buses, and 1 23 passenger bus. Again, there comes a time when it's more costly to service a bus that has 100,000 or close to 100,000 above of mileage. So this is considered an effective practice. Because it's a greater cost than keeping some of these older buses. And we are using our general fund to support our bus purchases. Mr. Stevens is going to drive us home, speaking of buses, like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Provenzano. The next piece of the budget, we'll talk about employee benefits, interfund transfers in the community, our pool use we have in the district. So two big pieces of employee benefits are the employee retirement system and teacher retirement system. So here we see an average rate decrease of 14.9 down to 14.6 for the employee retirement system, and a decrease of TRS projected down to 9.5% from 10.62. So you'll see a direct impact this has budgetarily in terms of the employer contribution amount related to TRS and ERS. So see a small increase of employee retirement system. Remember, we're still increasing salaries in those areas, so it's a proportion of it's the percentage applied against the salaries. So you see a small increase there. However, you see a decrease in the teacher retirement system salaries, or teacher retirement system payment of about 7.06%. Health and dental is flat. We had a good year for the health plan. We saw just a 1% increase roughly in the overall budget of the consortium, so it's a good operational piece. The plan went to self-funded over the past year. We see the 1% increase, so forecasting a 0% increase for next year, as that increase would have been factored in already for the 2018-19 year. So while it says 0%, still forecasting for the second half of 2019-20, because the plan runs on a calendar year of January through December. So still forecasting approximately a 10% increase on the plan, 8% on the other plans related to Medicare and the RASP 1 plan, which is the older plan. And then other benefits would include the FICA Med, Social Security, life insurance, unemployment, disability, workers' comp, and you see a small increase in those pieces. There is a slight increase in the FICA Med, but the unemployment has been overall decreased, and that's based on any of the experience we've had. We did increase the budget in that in previous years, but evaluating where the costs have come in terms of decreasing that for 19-20. So overall in benefits, you see a decrease of just under 1%. The interfund transfers, here we have both debt service and interfund transfer, and it's just how it's booked within the financials. So we'll have some principal and interest payments that mostly we transfer to our debt service fund, but if we're paying down any bond anticipation notes in the current year or making interest payments on those are paid out of the general fund themselves. So overall, from a debt perspective, it's down 5%, which is a decrease of a little over $300,000. We do have some debt retiring. So what that means is debt's falling off, just like a car payment. Last year, a payment on some of the debt that we have. And we have a transfer to the special aid fund of $230,000. This is our share of special ed summer school and Rochester School for the Deaf. There's 80% aid and then 20% cost to the district. And then transfer to the capital fund for facility improvements. This is the $100,000 building aidable capital outlay project districts are allowed to carry in the budget each year. We've been able to hit a couple of items on this each year. It's really small work of construction project. Usually you're talking around $80,000 to $85,000 of actual work because there's planning and document submission with SED that must take place. We've done air conditioning at Brooks Hill, Martha Brown. Brooks Hill is scheduled, Martha Brown was done. Some high school stage improvements, guidance suite for some HVAC work. And so this is where we can do that work that's on our BCS or some of the pieces that are there and continue to get aid on them. So overall, a decrease primarily due to the debt is 4.8%. Community service, this is just a matter of recording the expense on the expense side. We also receive revenue on the revenue side of the budget for facility use fees. And the overall summary, again, looking at the pieces that Mr. Provenzano presented about the general support, you see up 10%, 1% on transportation, but because of the other pieces, with the decreases, overall increase in the non-instructional portion of the budget is just over 1%, or $672,000. So that, you kind of see how that weighs out, especially as it pertains to the healthcare piece, and then being able to allocate the dollars for the much needed, improvements spoken about regarding the DAC work for the building condition survey and the facility side of the budget. So with that, I'll turn it back over to
The team,
Brett to finish off.
the comedy team.
Well, believe it or not, you'll see that we're going to be moving through the budget process. There's some important dates to recognize. March 19th will be our instructional budget. And that's when we'll be talking everything instructional, everything programming, and the costs associated with our programming. April 16th, there'll be a final draft of our total budget. There will be on March 7th a community budget meeting. The first community budget meeting was canceled because of weather. And the next community meeting is going to be March 7th. It's going to be at Martha Brown, and we'll be putting that on our website and all of our social media outlets. So hopefully we'll see some community members out there with opportunities to share and interact with the board. April 16th, like I said, the final draft of our total budget will be put forth with the adoption of the budget. The public hearing will be May 7th. Now, I believe that April 16th, we're going to be looking at that date because that's during break. So we're going to be looking at changing that date, I think, to be determined.
Right, but the deadline to adopt is when?
That week.
Is it that week? So
the deadline to adopt is the week, Friday of that week. So just happens to fall during break week, so it would push us into a position to look at the week before to adopt, which would be about a week and a half before the adoption date.
And we've generally needed every day that we.
So that's why the 16th was.
We do things beforehand.
But we're ahead of the schedule though this year.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, except for all these cancellations you keep having.
Well, thank you for your flexibility in being here tonight, and that's why it was important that we sort of stood on our track here. But I think we need to take a look at that, and we won't force the issue. If necessary, we'll do what we have to do. But I think that with proper planning and continued communication, we'll look for an adjustment there. May 7th is our public hearing. May 21st is the budget vote and Board of Elections. It will be at Joanna Perrin. We have 2 open board seats. The budget will be from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at JP Middle School in the gymnasium. So please stay tuned. Thank you. Questions, comments, discussion?
Budget-wise, I think we have things falling into place over the last few months, but even a couple years, we've a population projection, new one, right? I think the last one proved to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, fairly accurate. I mean, well within reason, right? The population projection. So now we have an updated one that's good for the next 5 years. We have our building condition survey, right? And that's always done every 5 years. We have we have our own educational programming priorities, facilities priorities, and financial planning priorities. And the one thing that perhaps is more challenging is the ability to project budgetly for 5 years. This is where, if I can continue to make my dig against Albany, back for what, about, I don't know, somewhere around 17 years ago, they made it much more challenging. It used to be when it's formula-based, you knew what you were getting, and you could know that because it's formula-based for the next 5 years, and so you could do a budget projection with greater confidence. We haven't been able to do that for quite a while. That, to me, supports our goal for reserves in terms of, and Brett alluded to this, in order to do our own projections and know that should things happen, we have reserves to support and allow us to stay on track. To me is important because I think we have everything falling into place really well, and like to keep moving on the trajectory that we have in our long-term plan and supporting our class size goals, right? Getting it right. We think our pendulum swung a little bit this way or that way, and trying to get it in the right area and keep our class sizes where they are. Always supporting clubs and extracurricular activities. So I'm excited. I'm glad where we are. I do wish the state would cooperate more. We never know with confidence from year to year what we'll be getting out of the state, and the formula's there, but they don't use it.
A new
right?
formula that we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, and so that's unfortunate, but I do think we're in a position to try and do that and be supported with our reserves. Knock on wood, right?
And we're not expecting more dollars from Foundation Aid.
We're not anticipating
Right.
that, but we're making our plans based on what we know.
Based upon what we know.
We have a lot of
Right.
good information. That's why I think I'm trying to say, I think
Yeah.
we're in a good position to go ahead and make our plans with who we are, what we want to be, what we want to become, and where we stand right now. So.
We have clear goals. We have community, we have awareness of what our community's expectations are, and, we've done a really great job. Credit to Mr. Stevens with our fiscal planning. So I feel good that we're on the right path.
So Audit and Finance Committee is also meeting Friday morning, again, to continue what we started earlier, right? Ross chuckles. Where we were looking at not the whole building condition survey, but now some of the priority list, and realized in that conversation there was a need to further prioritize it to some degree, right? To some of the things that we could, what do we say, set it aside for potential use of the smart school bond funds, right? Especially those related to safety and security. It wasn't just technology or buying of iPads. So that's going to continue on Friday. We do hope to get through most of that, right? If not, be done on Friday with that list, which then goes back to the part of the budget you said where we increased. It looked like a huge increase. It was purposeful. We're already spending money on maintenance, but we were waiting until the end of the year to kind of see what we had and what would we do. We're now trying to be more transparent, pick them, know about it up front, and put it out there to the community. So,
Perfectly stated.
Sounds good. I remember that conversation.
What?
Sounds good. I remember that.
Good, so we're all on the same page. Any questions for our Friday meeting then? Anything you saw today you want us to discuss further? No? Okay. Very good. Moving on. Thank you, Brett and Matt. Board policies are first readings. We seem to be going every other one. Last time we only had second readings, right? This time, first readings. Need a motion to approve our first readings. We got Kevin and Judy. Any questions about these policies? First time we're out of policy committee. Very good. All in favor of the first reading approval? 5-0. School-sponsored field trips. It actually was singular this time, only one on the list, if I recall. So, motion to approve. Judy, second. Joyce. All in favor? 5-0. School lunch profit loss statement. Had put some notes in the email. Oh yes. Motion to approve. Maureen?
Yep.
I'll second that. I mean, it's very healthy, but we're required to spend some things down, so it looks like a loss purposely. Is that a good summary?
Yep, good summary. There's also some equipment looking to be purchased, so we'll expect at year end for 2018-19, there will be a significant loss. That's because of the fund balance in the school lunch. It's it's a self-operating fund, operates off of the state and federal aid that's received for the lunches and breakfasts, as well as the sales for the program, so may not exceed 3 months of expenses. So it's not a terrible thing, but we do have to spend some money down in that piece. We'll see a loss overall for the school year.
So we were,
good.
what, closer to the 5 months of fund balance? Is that about right? So
Closer, yeah, 4.5, 5 months.
So,
Yep.
so it does support the purchasing of equipment, but we got to get back down to 3 months by law, so
Yes.
that's what we're doing. That's why I say I don't like saying it looks like a loss. It is a loss because we're spending money down, but we have to, and we're in a position to do it, and we'll still be healthy after
Yes.
that. So,
Yes.
No pun intended.
If only I were that good. Okay, any questions, other? All in favor? 5-0. An extra classroom activity fund financial report provided by Ray Wagner's team. Need a motion to accept or approve that report. Kevin, second, I'll do that. We did review this at the Finance Committee as well. Did you want to say anything, Kevin? or-
There were no real observations of note, other than an estimate for a choreographer that was $500 off, and apparently it wasn't put back to the students to get their approval, which is not going to happen again, but it was based on an estimate, so it wasn't anything of note.
We'll say they really, having an audit, for better or worse, the students now have to be involved. And they're asking for notes that say that this was approved, or that was approved. So it's as you said, Kevin, no findings of any serious note, but it does give something onus to the students who say, I want to run for treasurer of my class because I'm good with money. I can count. And I always love the speeches. They don't know what they're talking about, but they can count, and it really helps them see what goes into our organizations. And for people interested in businesses and seeing the ins and outs, it's a very good learning experience. Expensive for our part of the audits to have to pay people to watch and make sure that it's being done correctly, but it's a good learning experience.
Some of them have some hefty balances. Are they mostly from fundraisers, or where do they get these large sums?
Yes.
Some fundraisers, some could be trips as they're, the money flows in and out. And I think as you look at the bottom dollar between all of our buildings that have these accounts, there's about $400,000 that's flowing in and out of these funds. So yeah, it could be fundraisers, could be trips that are flowing through in terms of the in and out of the money, et cetera.
But to that point, the expectation is that they do use those funds, and it is fluid, and it is spent down.
Yep, and overall,
Yeah.
they did have a spend down from the previous year.
Right.
From the balance, it was a small one, where you don't want to see it all drop off at once, because then that's going to create a massive need for raising money for the next year, but.
And I know when I questioned, I was thinking about you at the same time, Joyce, because one of the questions we had was, how is it being spent? And our kids that may have difficulty affording a yearbook. Some of the spending down is not, it's costing less to make the yearbook, but some of this is going to help students get more access to things that are part of your school experience.
So you said when there's trips and money flowing through, does that, we pay usually for those trips, does that money go into their coffers and paid out that way? How does?
These would be specific to the extra classroom activity clubs themselves. So those would, if they're fundraising, it's going through their club accounts. So these are separate bank accounts from the districts.
Right.
On those.
Okay.
And it does ebb and flow. For the years, I've noticed it sometimes increase, but we've always been
Has nothing to do with us.
And it could, truly could vary depending on if, perhaps they had a good fundraising year, or they weren't able to do an activity of which funds were planned for, or timing of an activity. in those pieces.
Maybe they fundraise every other year, and this,
Right.
that
Yeah.
put a,
Yep.
That's true, too. I'm glad to see it, because it means that they're functioning well, and they're getting to go on their trips and do what they want to do, and that makes for healthy, kids and curriculum and all of that stuff, so I'm glad to see it.
Yeah. I think it's exciting. Reading the audit is, that's generally not put together very well, exciting audit. But when I look at it from the perspective of students' involvements, and Kevin mentioned their minor findings, they always have been, thankfully, where, there's potential for some serious issues from time to time. They're dealing with a lot of cash and making sure it gets accounted and deposited in the right places, right, and not in the wrong places. And so every year we have minor, but I love it because some of the things that are findings are representative of what the education that's occurring, right? I just think that's great that finding represents it. Somebody learning something about what the process should be. And they've always been minor for the most part. Now, I might sweat a little more next year. My daughter did become treasurer of one of the clubs, and
so I think Kevin Glover had a
I mean,
question.
another audit on that one, double audit.
Mr. Glover had a question, when there are issues that come to light, what's the response? And, we work with the buildings, we go and have conversations with the principal, the club advisors, and they remediate it pretty quickly. Use it as a learning experience.
Yeah, the extra classroom treasurers do a fantastic job, as well as the students and the officers within the clubs. And if they have questions in any way we can assist, our treasurer and district office will help, with any of those questions and guidance on some of those. So they all really work nicely and collaboratively together, and the audit is definitely a testament to that work.
yeah, in 7 years, they've always been minor findings. So it's great. Anyway, any more discussion? All in favor of that? Are you in favor?
Oh, I'm yes.
5-0. And we have removed the executive session, so that just brings us to any additional board comments. On this wintry evening, time to go home. Yes? Very good. Then I need a motion to adjourn. Kevin and Judy, all in favor? 5-0, 5-0, no one's abstaining. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.